So hi guys, here is Dario Martinis of digitalstress.org and the website that helps you to thrive in the digital age. And my co-host today is my lifelong best friend and business partner, Andrea Bruno. Ciao
Hi,
Andrea.
Hi everyone. Wow, we are thrilled to have Jaimesmart with us in an interview titled A Paradigm Shift to Thrive in the Digital Age. And so, hi Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm really well. It's really great to be here. I'm really glad we could make this happen.
Wow. Splendid. So, for who is listening and doesn't know Jamie yet, a few words about him. So, Jamie is a Sunday Time best-selling author, trainer, and executive coach with over 20 years of experience and a proven track record of helping individuals and businesses making extraordinary changes and get results. He appeared on TVs and publications like Sky, BBC, The Times, The Daily Telegraph, and so forth. And he's the author of some of my favorite books, like Clarity, The Little Book of Clarity, The Little Book of Results, and the Sunday Times bestseller Results, Think Less, Achieve More. I hope I remembered all of your books, Jamie.
All the ones that I've been published so far, yeah.
So this interview we were saying just before starting the recording, it has been a long time coming because over 2 years, I think. 3 years ago, we started the project of digitalstress.org as an NGO to help people thrive and be happy and healthy in the digital world. And it was both a personal research and we were sharing with others what we discovered. We were in that cohort of people, the first millennials. So we were the first one to see, we remember how it was before the digital world and after the digital world. And we also started to, we were very nerd when we were young. So we were the first one to suffer from addiction, stuff that nowadays is mainstream. But we were chatting and staying in forums for 6 hours a day when we were 16. And pornography, video game addiction. So we wanted to create a project to help people through what we discovered. Now, we defined digital stress as all the consequences of our temporary inability to cope healthily in healthy ways, physically, mentally, and socially with the rapid technological change. So we discovered that there was a myriad of problems, such as addiction, anxiety, social isolation, but also bigger socio-economic, socio-systemic, problems such as polarization of the democratic process, and a myriad of solutions. So apps, courses, strategies, techniques, meditations, trying to pressure policymakers and tech companies into making changes. But we felt frustrated. So the clients and us, we had the feeling of putting stopgaps everywhere, but not finding a proper one solution to the problem, like a true answer. It was like getting a nice massage or a day at the spa. Then you go back to your day at work and you're still stressed, but at least you had a day off. So that was our feeling until we decided to start the project. The project started in Italian and in English, and we wanted to promote it in the English language, for which we don't have so many contacts as in the Italian market, where we do coaching and training. So I called Jamie, and Jamie told me, it's fine, let's do an interview. But please first read my book, because since you last met me, that was in 2013 in London, my work has changed quite a bit. And that was 2.5 years ago, because reading the book of Jamie, our world dramatically shifted. So we had a paradigm shift, and now we see one solution to all these problems. So the difference is that before there were like myriads of problems and myriads of solutions. And now there is one problem and one solution. Now, what is this solution? This is what we're going to speak about in this interview. And that's why we have Jamie. It's not going to be me speaking about it. So Jamie, can you tell us a bit about this solution, this paradigm shift, and why we need right now in this digital age, in this information age, we're so much in need of it?
Yeah, and it's interesting the way you describe your experience, because you got in touch about the interview, and I said, sure, just read the book. And then we didn't talk for a while, and yet things changed. And the reason things changed for you is because once you see how something already works, something that's already true about human beings, about life, about the world, it takes you on its own learning curve. And so what I mean by a paradigm shift in these terms is, if we look at the world of something like physics or engineering, there are very well understood principles that anyone who's building an airplane, anyone who's designing a computer, anyone who's building a bridge follows a set of principles. And, for bridge building, it'll include Newton's laws of thermodynamics and gravitation and that sort of thing. So there's a set of principles that the whole field is built on and everyone agrees on. Similarly, in medicine, we've got germ theory, which is kind of a platform that pretty much everyone in the field of medicine, if you go into a hospital, if you go for an operation somewhere, they're going to be washing their hands and sterilizing their equipment and all that sort of stuff, because everyone in the field agrees that stuff's important. Well, in the field of psychology, it's a little different. And in the field of psychology is what they call a pre-paradigm field. It's a field where the fundamentals of the field haven't yet been established. They haven't yet been agreed. So as a result, you've got hundreds and hundreds of different schools of therapy, ranging from Freudian and Jungian to positive psychology to mindfulness. There are all kinds of different approaches that people are using to try and deal with stress, anxiety, depression, addiction, changing habits, all that sort of stuff. And if you go on Google or Amazon, there are hundreds of thousands of books about all that stuff. But if you look at those hundreds of thousands of books, you'll find that there's no shared foundation.
They're widely different from...
Whereas if you looked at the thousands and thousands of engineering books, there's a shared foundation. Now that's not saying that there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the state that any field is in before a paradigm has been established. And it's kind of interesting, I was reading a book about Joseph Lister. Joseph Lister was the guy who first discovered antiseptic surgery. So, before they knew about that, surgeons were dirty. They didn't wash their hands, any of that stuff. And Lister was a massive proponent of antiseptic surgery. And the reason was, when he was around in the late 1800s, the Industrial Revolution had changed the face of Western civilization. And so all of a sudden you had huge cities full of people working in factories and mills. And the movement of all these people into cities meant there were these huge hospitals, and the place was awash with germs. And so as a result, infection was breaking out left, right, and center. And Lister saw, oh, this is a humanitarian crisis. So the need for antiseptic surgery and antibacterial techniques in hospital and that sort of thing, that was created because of the Industrial Revolution and the movement of people. Well, similarly, as a species, we've been living with a lack of understanding of the principles behind our own psychology. And that's had its own challenges. But all of a sudden, this big shift with the information revolution and apps and phones and computers and screens and everything that comes with it is creating an analogous humanitarian crisis psychologically. So we see, everything from rates of self-harm and suicide and depression going up among teens and young men. We see all kinds of symptoms, but they're symptoms of a misunderstanding about how our experience is created and who we really are. They're a misunderstanding of our essential psychology. So the paradigm shift, just as the paradigm shift in medicine was from not knowing about germs to knowing about germs. The paradigm shift in psychology is going from a lack of understanding of the principles behind clarity, the principles behind resilience and well-being and peace of mind and connected relationships, and our own flourishing as human beings. So that's the paradigm shift. Like what you see throughout history is that anytime people catch sight of what's already true about how an aspect of life works, it changes the playing field for everybody.
And this really applies about digital stress as well, because before we thought that there was a problem with technology. Like, okay, digital technology as a problem, as an issue. So let's build a very large bags of tricks to deal with it. And that was not working. Then when we realized that technology was never the problem it was a misunderstanding from where our experience is actually created. Then from there, things were simple. And we stopped trying to solve problems. A lot of problems, they were really never there. We are just really creating them. And then we are trying to create solutions. That was what we were doing, and really changed understanding all these principles.
And it was sort of, we compare it to the whack-a-mole, the game in which it's for us it was like that. And we spent, I started when I was 18 to delve into self-growth and psychology, and it was a 13-year journey before finding out about the principles behind clarity, in which I felt like I was playing a game of whack-a-mole, and some stuff were getting better and some stuff were getting much worse with the time, and I didn't understand why. And this was also with digital stress. I was going more in nature, and I felt more connected to certain parts of my life and in my relationship, while at the same time I was still using pornography, or I was still using too many video games. It depended on the time. I was really trading problems, like this is fixed and then the other one is not fixed. So, and I totally get what you mean. But for those who don't know what this paradigm is, what it contains in a way, because now we spoke about the paradigm shift, but what is this shift? What is it about?
So when I talk about the principles behind clarity, what I'm talking about is everybody's innate capacity for resilience, realization, peace of mind, creativity, good ideas, love and connection, motivation, all the things that, people write books about, those internal qualities, a sense of purpose and direction, those are innate capacities for human beings. Happiness is so simple that even a baby can do it. Peace of mind is our birthright. And so I guess there are two things. I sometimes say the two most valuable things a person can learn are, number one, how their experience is being created, and number two, who they really are. And how our experience is created is we're living in the experience of what I refer to as the principle of thought taking form in the moment. Now, this is old neuroscience, okay? Like, this was figured out by a guy called Helmholtz back in the 1850s. He discovered that we don't experience the world directly, as it seems to us, like as we sit here now, it seems like we're looking out through our eyes, through little windows in our head out at the world, right? But that's not actually how it works. Our brains are in a sealed container called our skull, and then data pours in through our senses, and our minds go, what's my best guess at what must be out there for me to be receiving this data? And so the world at hand that we experience is an internally generated perceptual reality. And that's very strange. Like, I've been teaching this stuff for over a decade, and I still find that one of the strangest things of all, because it doesn't look like that, but that's how it works. And like I said, this is old neuroscience. So we're living in the principle of thought is just a word to describe that power that every human being has to generate a perceptual reality and experience it as though it's an actual reality. So we're living in the experience of the principle of thought taking form in the moment, every single moment of our lives, okay? And that what that means is we're always feeling the totality of what's running through our thought system in any moment. And what that means is every feeling you've ever felt in your whole life was thought in the moment. And every experience every feeling you're ever gonna feel is thought in the moment. So what that means is that all the most beautiful things you've ever felt, 100% of that has come from within. 100% of it. All the peace, all the well-being, all the security, all the love that you've ever experienced came from within. And all the unpleasant stuff did too. All the stress, all the worry, all the anxiety, because that's how our perceptual systems work. And so that's the first thing, that if you know, the guy who first articulated these principles is a guy called Sydney Banks. And the way he put it was, if the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. And that's what I see with this paradigm, is people wake up to the fact that they're living in the experience of thought in the moment and not in the experience of the stuff that they're thinking about. You know, people say, oh, I'm stressed because I'm doing a talk next week, or because I went to an interview and it didn't work out right, or whatever. The moment we see, oh no, we're feeling a movement of energy from within and nothing else. As soon as people see that, it changes things profoundly.
It's sort of you call it the teddy bear effect. No?
Mm.
It's a good example to if you can make it to us. It's a fun story. It's a fun metaphor.
Yeah, well, it's you know, it's funny if you stop and think about it. And I've often asked audiences this, you know, when you're a child, who had a teddy bear or a security blanket or whatever, and lots of people put up their hands, and it's totally normal. You know, we give a child one of these, what they call transitional objects, and the child feels a sense of peace and security, and they attribute it to the teddy bear or the blanket or whatever it might be. And as far as the child's concerned, that feeling of peace and well-being and security, it definitely comes from the teddy bear. But if you were to open up the teddy bear and look inside, you would find that it's full of stuffing. It doesn't have anything in it that can transmit feelings or anything like that. The fact of the matter is 100% of the feeling is coming from within the child, and none of it's coming from the bear. In fact, you could give the child you could give them the most frightening or monstrous or evil dictator of all time stuffed as a stuffed toy, and a little baby would be just as happy with that. And because their feelings of security and peace and well-being are thought generated. They're not teddy bear generated. They're not blanket generated. They're thought generated. They're coming from within. And you know, if you take the teddy bear away from the child and the child starts crying because they think they've got a teddy bear deficiency, those feelings of bother, of anxiety, of worry, those are coming from within the child, but they're attributing it to the lack of a teddy bear. Well, this is a simple explanation, but it suddenly looks different to us as adults when we substitute the teddy bears of our boss or our bank balance or our job or our residence or our car or our waistline, you know, or what I'm like as a person, or my partner, or what happened last week, or what I think is going to happen next week, or what happens if things don't work out the way I want them to. A great example is, you know, there's a factor called hedonic prediction, which which acknowledges the fact that as human beings, we're not actually that great at predicting how we'll feel in future situations. Like we think, oh, if this happened, I'd be so happy. And if that happened, that would be terrible. And I would be so sad and that sort of thing. And yet what often you find is when people get the thing they thought would make them happy, it makes them happy for like 5 minutes and then they're on to the next thing. And often when people have the thing happen that they were dreading, they end up discovering that they're fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
You see, we're not very good at predicting how we'll feel in future scenarios, but we believe that we're really good at it. So there's kind of a trick of the mind at play there.
I think that just came to mind an experience I had. First of all, I asked you about the teddy bear because I remember it was one of the first metaphors that when I heard it, I had a sense of, I was in my car listening to your Audible of clarity. And by the way, now that I think of it, we will give a link, we will put it for the free sample chapters and the instant clarity download in case people want to delve more into your work. But I remember I had this moment of realization and I was like, I'm generating it. It's not that there is not a reality out there, but I can only perceive it through my thinking. And it took me some months to appreciate the changes that were happening in my life effortlessly because of these realizations that were coming. But when I saw it, like you, I decided to leave also much of the training I had in the past, and because I understood the magnitude of a discovery like this. And in a way, I don't know if also for you, also before both me and Andrea, we were going around this. It was like I got some sense of it, but not that much. Not like it's a totality. It's like it's always like this. It's not a bit like this. It's really truly perceived.
Yes, when you go from 99% to 100%, it changes completely.
It changes everything.
When you start to really be open to the fact that, whoa, there are no exceptions. Like my bank account is a teddy bear, the same as my Instagram account, or how many likes one post receive, or we're doing like a marketing launch. We're like checking how many sales we had. And,
Exactly.
and we really thought for some moments, oh, my feeling of safety is coming from how many sales I'm going to have at the end of this launch. And
the launches are perfect.
Yeah.
If anyone listening has ever done a launch, that's the perfect moment in which to see this, because you're like, oh my God, they're not coming. Oh my God.
I know that feeling well.
And we really, really think that what you're sharing here, Jamie, is really important for people that are trying to have some relief from digital stress. There are so many people that they spend their whole day thinking that they have a problem because they are not celebrities online, because they are not influencers, because their videos, their Instagram account or whatever is not performing as well as they should, or could be a lot of other problems that people in that moment, they really, really, really feel. And up until they think that the solution is in changing the circumstances, they will never really get over it. And then a lot of people, and me and Dario included, then we thought, make one step back and focus about the tools that you're using, the social media. And that didn't really help. I mean, yes, it helps to put things in.
I made 2 years without WhatsApp. I had an old Nokia, and it didn't change at all. I was stressed as before. Just I wasn't using a smartphone.
And then just understanding, okay, just make another step back and start to discuss things from the point of view of where our experience is coming from. And then it doesn't matter if we're talking about digital devices, if we're talking about our work or everything else, then there things they appear different. And here, Jimmy, I want to be completely honest. I had to read your book twice and listen to your Audible book 2 times before having like, oof, now I got it there. Because before I had a feeling like I can feel that there is something that is fundamentally true, but I cannot really understand what it is.
It's like, what is it?
Then when I try to just talk about this to Dario or to someone else, the words, they're not satisfying. Like I'm all the time going in the mental categories of something else, something that sounds a little bit similar, like, oh, it's a little bit similar to this method or this technique or this. Oh, yeah, the Buddhists are saying basically the same. But it was like, there is something that, and then at a certain moment, I just got a realization. And we cannot force a realization on anyone. I can share one realization, but it's not that another person is going to feel the same. But maybe it's going to create a little bit of a space where they're going to find their own realization there. And at this point, I'd like to go into some specific questions about some effects of digital stress, and from the point of view of this paradigm shift. Like if you can give some suggestions to people and see how this sounds, how this works. Because I'm pretty sure that probably some people listening to this are experiencing something similar. They feel that something is fundamentally truth, but they're still, okay, what should I do now? So,
and it's like you say in your book Results, is practicality check. So let's go into the practicality of how this applies into everyday life, because it is something that changes also the very practical stuff of every day. So Andrea, please.
Yes. So first question about focus and stop procrastinating. So Jamie, how can we focus more and stop procrastinating in a world that is full of shiny notifications and digital distractions?
Well, the thing that occurs to me in relation to that is, and I'd be tempted to put procrastination and focus in different categories. So if we start with procrastination,
you can do that.
if we start with procrastination, it looks to me like almost all the difficulties that people have with procrastination is because they believe that they need to feel a certain way in order to take action. And so for instance, if we take the structure of procrastination, let's say I've got something which is, I've got to fill out my tax return, and it's like it's due by a certain point. It's like, but when I think about doing it, I get a bad feeling. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that. It'll be boring. And well, the issue isn't that I've got some task that I don't want to do. The issue isn't that there's a feeling that happens when I think about it. The issue is I believe that that feeling is telling me about the future task, but that's not true. That can't be true. That feeling in the moment is telling you about the goggles you're wearing in that moment and nothing else. And so a question that I've found quite useful, because here's the thing. My basic assertion is that the thing that's going to help someone out is an insight into where their experience is coming from and who they really are. Another word for insight is realization, which just means having our perceptions brought more closely into line with reality. Now, the fact of the matter is, if someone's procrastinating because they believe their feelings are telling them about the thing they don't want to do, they're out of touch with reality. And we all are that person sometimes. I'm sometimes that person. And when I'm procrastinating, it genuinely doesn't occur to me in that moment, oh, I'm just feeling thought. It genuinely seems to me like I'm feeling the tax return or whatever it is that I'm putting off. And so the question, where do you believe your experience is coming from right now? Where do you believe it's coming from? And just taking a look at that and going, okay, is this a teddy bear? Is this a teddy bear? Am I believing that my feeling is coming from the future task? And to be honest with yourself, like if I think of the tax bill, I'm like, oh man, yeah, I do believe that. Indeed. Well, that's not possible. Like there's really something to be said for what this understanding gives you is kind of like a true false detector. It's like, Is that possible? Is that true? It doesn't mean that you're always going to want to do the things you don't want to do. Doesn't mean that you're always going to be inspired and motivated to clean the toilets or whatever. What it means is that you can be honest with yourself about what's true and what's not true. It's like, if you know that the only thing it's possible to feel is your psychology in the moment, is the power of thought taking form in the moment, then you also know it's not possible for you to feel future events in the present. And I know it may sound too simple and like, what's that going to do for you? But what I found again and again and again is that as you look right at the truth of that, it does something for you. It can wake you up to who you really are and where your experience is coming from. And what you start to find is that you're able to move forward with things that may have seemed intolerably uncomfortable in the past. So the beauty of this isn't that it makes everything comfortable and inspiring and motivational. The beauty of it is it allows you to do difficult things. It allows you to find methods and approaches that work for you on a given occasion. So it's funny, when I think of focus, well, there are two aspects to it. One of them is focus or flow is a natural state for human beings, okay? Like we are built to be able to focus. And a lot of times what you find is that focus shows up when you're already in the game, when you're already taking action and moving forward in a certain direction, working on something and that sort of thing. But the other thing that comes with it is insight and realization will show you what works for you. So I'll give you an example. For me personally, I find that if I want to stay really focused, then it helps me to set a timer and say, okay, for the next 30 minutes, I'm only going to work on this one thing. And then anytime my head goes, oh, I would like to check Facebook or look at my email or scroll through Twitter, or I'm like, has the timer gone off yet? It's like, no. It's like, okay, keep working. You can do that when the timer goes off. So, but that occurred to me when I was in an insight-friendly space and aware of what's going on. So it's not like you can never, use a tool or use an approach that helps you, but it's realizing that it's going to be the thing that helps you. I'll give you another example. When I wrote my book results, okay, I got ready to write, and there were 24 chapters to write and one introduction plus front matter and end matter. And I got to the point where I had sort of a half decent draft done. But there was still a lot of work to do to get it to the point where I was really happy with it. So I'm like, okay, well, how can I do that? And how can I do it quickly? And how can I make it enjoyable and that sort of thing? And it occurred to me, oh, I'm going to make like a traffic light system. So for every chapter, I stuck up Post-it notes on the wall, one per chapter. And then when it went from half decent to good, I changed it to a new color. And when it went from good to excellent, I changed it to a new color. And so that allowed me to stay motivated and keep that sort of thing. But here's the thing. That probably won't work for the next book. That's the approach that came up to me for this book. The approach that I came up with for my first book was to send out a chapter a week to my mailing list. But that didn't work for this one. So it's about staying open to the fact that you have a source of insight and realization within you that's going to give you what you need to move forward and to take the next step. And knowing that focus is an innate capacity for every human being. We all have that ability. And it's about understanding how to kind of understanding how your own creative process works and understanding what you've got going for you and where your experience is coming from. If you know where your experience is coming from, it's a lot easier to say no to the distractions that might pull you away.
True. it's very difficult, and at the same time very easy then when you understand, and when you have these realizations, if you as you call them. um, uh, in a way, once you see that your experience is generated by thought, it creates a space
Mm.
that was not there before. And in that space, something else has the possibility to come up, like a sort of a wisdom. And you don't need anymore to search externally the technique of that famous author. You could have written a blog post on Medium, like how I wrote results my Sunday, the traffic light method, and probably would have gotten a lot of clicks, but truly it won't work for most people.
And this is it. The way I like to think about it is, there are all sorts of wonderful things that people have discovered and that you can learn about. Like that I love that books exist and that people have figured cool stuff out. But when it comes to our own minds, there's a way that it already works. And we have this source of creativity, of insight, of realization, of good ideas. And so often when people write about, here's how you do such and such a thing, here's how you create a bestseller, or here's how you create, they're taking the things that they created, the way I think about it is like apples grow on a tree, and you can pick some apples and they can be delicious, but trying to get other people's techniques and approaches to fit for you is like taking apples off one tree and sticking them onto another. When actually the power in the apple metaphor is in the tree and is in the energy behind life that has it produce fresh apples again and again and again. There's an incredible source of abundance there, and that abundance of ideas and insight and creativity and innovation is there. It's there in every human being. And we have this, what you described as wisdom. We have this inner guidance system that can give us what we need when we need it. And it's just a matter of recognizing that it's there, recognizing that that's what we've got going for us.
I totally agree.
And this one I feel that is very true also for tools. Because, for example, about how to stay more focused, a lot of people, they are just getting crazy about finding the perfect tool. There is like a software, I don't know if you ever heard about it, it's called Focus Me.
I haven't.
It's a software that you can install on your computer, on your Mac, on your phone, and you can say to this software, okay, if I spend too much time on social media, just block that app, block that application, and all sorts of things. For like for newspapers, you can do exactly the same. For video games, and for a while, I tried that software. I was like, that's actually very cool, and it was helping me to just realize how I was spending my time. Then at a certain moment, I realized that that was not working for me anymore. And it was not like using it more was making me more focused on what I was doing. And then I was like stopping a moment and try to realize just what happened there. And it's exactly the same thing as the apple tree that you described. Like that was like a delicious apple for one period. But then after a while, it was not good for me anymore. And I just had to let it go. And that's actually good that I realized, because it was very tempting to just message everyone that I knew, send a message to my email list and tell them, guys, I have the solution for the focus, just download the software and it's done. Okay, next problem. And it doesn't work that way.
That's such a great example, because I think and it's kind of natural for us that it genuinely seems to us like the power in the world is outside. It seems to us like it's in the teddy bear or in the technique or in the app. And so we attribute the power to that thing, that method, that technique, that object, never realizing that the power was always in you. I remember years and years ago, I used to smoke cigarettes, okay? This is like 20 years ago. And I read this book called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. So I read this book and I didn't like it very much. And then partway through the book, he uses this metaphor of the nicotine monster. And he said, ever since you started smoking, you've been feeding a nicotine monster. And when you stop, that monster is going to start dying. And you'll feel the pangs of craving. And that's the feeling of the monster dying. The addiction is dying. And I was like, oh my God, I had an insight. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I didn't smoke again. And so every time someone told me they were trying to quit smoking, I would be like, let me tell you about the nicotine monster. And I would tell them, and they'd keep smoking. I thought the power was in the metaphor. But the power is in the capacity for insight and realization that we all have. And a metaphor for insight and realization is when you have a software update on your computer or your phone. So, your phone says version number 11.2.3 now ready for update. Do you want to install? And you hit the button, you go, yeah. And it goes updating. And if you want, you can hit the button that says, do you want more info? And it tells you a little paragraph about the update. But the paragraph isn't the update. The update is written in machine code. It's written in something that only computer programmers understand. Well, when you have an insight, you might get an idea that comes with it, like, oh, I just need to focus my attention more wisely, or I just need to, stop with the descriptor. You might have some words that come with it or some story that comes with it. But the power is in the fresh, new perceptual reality that's being updated into your perception. Like, that's where the power is. It's not in the story. It's not in the metaphor. It's not in the way of explaining something. Like even the teddy bear metaphor, which I know for some people, it just knocks their socks off and they go, wow, that's so clear. Other people are like,
like what? Yes, what the hell?
But it's a good metaphor. It's like, no, the power isn't in the metaphor. The power's in the capacity for insight and realization that's there at the heart of every human being.
And it came to the other question that we wanted to pose you was, and since you started to speak about cigarette, it's a very good moment. What about breaking bad habits? This is a huge topic. So, phone addiction, video game addiction, porn addiction, or sleeping with the smartphone, scrolling social media while you shouldn't. How how this paradigm helps people break bad habits and form new ones?
Well, there are two aspects to this. The first is to realize that a bad habit is, in almost every situation, is a coping mechanism. It's a way of dealing with feelings that the person is not comfortable with. So that may be feelings of stress or anger or loneliness or worry or anxiety or sadness. It can be any feeling that a person, for whatever reason, doesn't feel comfortable feeling, okay? And so, and here's the thing. If we talk about uncomfortable feelings like stress, worry, anxiety, that sort of thing, if you ask someone, hey, why are you feeling worried? Why are you feeling stressed? They will always give a reason. And the reason will almost always be something that they're attributed to. So they say, oh, well, let me tell you why I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling stressed because of my job, because of my boss, because of my upbringing, because of a diagnosis I got, because of my girlfriend, my boyfriend, because I'm worried about the future, because I'm worried about the past, because of the environment, because of the political situation, because of, they'll always have a reason. In almost every situation, that reason will be outside. It'll either be outside in the world of things, or outside in time, out in the future, or out in the past, or even outside in their personality. Like, and you may think, oh, well, hang on, personality, that's inside, isn't it? No, it's outside. It's outside because it's thoughts and beliefs and ideas and concepts. And so as soon as a person believes that their uncomfortable feelings are coming from somewhere outside thought in the moment, outside the wisdom and intelligence of life, outside of this hot second, as soon as they believe it's coming from out there, then they look to out there for a solution. They look to the out there, and that looks like the right place to look, right? If my problem is coming from out there, then that's out there is the place to look for a solution. And so they look to the out there of booze or phones or cigarettes or screen time or pornography or games or whatever to change how they feel. And so the thing again and again and again that, and it seems kind of counterintuitive, but if you want someone to, if someone wants to get free from a habit, and the habit is the solution to a problem that is caused by misunderstanding, you need to start by clearing up that problem, clearing up that misunderstanding. See, if someone believes that their feelings of stress are coming from outside, whether it's the outside of jobs or friends or partners or whatever, then they'll look outside for the solution. And so that the starting point with habits and addictions is seeing, oh, those feelings aren't coming from out there in the first place. Mm-hmm. You know, the simplest solution to any kind of negative habit or coping mechanism is to not need to cope. And so one aspect of it is realizing that you're feeling thought and not the things you're thinking about. But the other is like what comes along with that is just getting more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Because here's the thing. For a lot of people, and this was true through a lot of my life, actually, if I felt uncomfortable, whether it was stress or anger or worry or anxiety, it was a signal. It was going, something's wrong. Something's wrong out there. It was sort of like an alarm going off. There's a problem. There's a problem. And now I still feel the full range of human emotions and sometimes feel stressed or worried or anxious or annoyed or frustrated or whatever. But it just doesn't look like that big of a deal. It's like, oh, I guess I'm feeling frustrated now. It's like, well, you know, it's funny. I was being interviewed on a podcast about happiness, and we got to the end of the podcast, and they said, so what is the secret to happiness? And I said, well, it looks to me like the less concerned you are with how you feel, the better you feel. It's very normal for people to get excessively concerned about feeling stressed or anxious or worried or sad or any of that thing. And part of it is because they believe that that's telling them, A, that there's a problem out there in the world that's giving them a bad feeling, but also that there's something wrong with them. And that it has them feeling separate and isolated from life. And the fact is, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with anybody. I mean, there could be all kinds of things wrong with our physical bodies, and we can have bad attitudes and bad habits and that sort of thing. But there's nothing wrong with the essence of you, like who you really are is already whole and perfect and complete. You're not broken and you don't need fixing. There's nothing wrong with you, and there never has been, and there never will be. And as you start to realize that you're already everything you've been searching for, and that you already have everything you could ever have been afraid of losing, and it can never be taken away from you. I mean, at an emotional level, at a sense of who you are level. it just kind of takes a weight off your mind. It's like, oh, you're okay. Like, I often find when I'm coaching people, when they're afraid of failure or criticism or things not going the way they want to, I find myself saying, the issue isn't that things might not turn out the way you want them to. The issue is you don't believe you'd be able to handle that. And you can. You're built for reality. The fact that we're even here having this conversation is the result of millions of years of evolution. And we come from a long line of people that managed to survive at least until breeding age and have sex at least once and raise a child that did the same thing. And we are built for reality. We're optimized for results. And you're capable of far, far more than you think.
It's funny when sometimes when you speak, I feel that we're really in tune, maybe because we first discovered this through you, but you spoke about the fear of criticism and when you coach clients. And I was actually thinking of one of my clients that got a realization into their deeper nature, in who she truly is. And she feared criticism a lot at the workplace. And afterwards, it just changes how she experiences it, both when it gets under her skin and when it doesn't. It doesn't matter so much anymore. And I got her testimonial like some days ago, and she was saying exactly that. And she had a moment after we spoke about that. She had a moment of clear mind, those kind of moments in which you have an empty mind. She spent an entire evening in this emptiness, and then after that it didn't matter so much anymore, the problem that she perceived before. So.
I think that's a really great point, actually, is that as you explore this understanding, what you find is that you get moments like that, and sometimes it's a whole evening or you just fall into peace. Sometimes people have it for a few days, sometimes people just for a few moments. But it's all, how I think of that is it's almost like getting a software update, because when that happens, things are different afterwards. You see the world differently. And this is actually, very normal for human beings. We have this innate capacity for realization, which is what has allowed us to learn to walk and to talk and to interact in the world and do things like drive cars and that sort of stuff. It's an innate capacity to learn on a deep level that's nothing to do with, going to school or reading books or whatever. It's a capacity we have to learn from raw data about reality, data pouring in through our senses. And when we have one of those insights, it changes the playing field for us.
That's a very good metaphor. It's sort of old out, new in,
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think it's an important point to tell people that this way of this model, if you like, this paradigm, it's not an application model in as much as it's not like, okay, remember this and do this and take these steps and do this. Like if you stop and think about it, if you look at the cover of any magazine, it's full of additive approaches. It'll say, 7 tips to have a swimsuit body and, 5 tips to stop digital addiction and 7 steps to secure your financial future. And our conscious minds love those 5 top tips, and it loves additive advice. But what we find is we read those things and we go, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? And then we don't do them, because the stuff that we actually do, the stuff that actually shows up in our lives, is the stuff that's driven by insight and realization. So this paradigm is a subtractive model. In fact, we refer to it as subtractive psychology, because as you get realizations into how you already work and who you already are, like the truth of what's already going on, it takes stuff off your mind. So it's automatic implementation, that as you have insights into it, it implements automatically in your life.
And this is actually very interesting because now you were talking about additive approaches that they're super common. They're super common and they're shiny. A lot of people, they love them. And one of the topics where people are searching for this the most is productivity.
Mm.
And we some time ago we made like a survey for our mailing list, asking people like what's the most important thing that you would like to solve about digital stress. And one of the most common answer, it was I'd like to be more productive. And so actually this is a very interesting question, based on this paradigm shift. What's your suggestion for people that they want to be more productive? They want to get things done.
I've got a couple of thoughts on it. Can I share screen with you guys?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So this is from chapter 8 of my book Results, and I call this the clarity productivity quadrant. And it's just a description of what you already see happening when it comes to people being productive. So this is, a classic quadrant approach. So contamination is the word I use for when people are caught up in what I call contaminated thinking. They're just believing that they're feeling something other than thought. And clarity is just a word for that sense of being kind of in the zone and focused and on track and that sort of thing. And there are two modes that we think about. We've got the passive mode and the active mode. So when someone's caught up in contaminated thinking and they're in the passive mode, that's what we call stuck. Okay, when someone says, oh, I'm stuck, I don't know how to get started and that sort of thing. That's contaminated and passive. When someone's in the contaminated mode, but they're active, it's what I call uninspired action. And that's when they're like, oh man, I'll go through my email, I'll do this stuff, but they're not inspired or anything. They're just doing the stuff. If you're in clarity in your passive, that's the zone of reflection. And often people will get great ideas when they're in reflection and kind of get in touch with who they are and that sort of thing. So I'll often ask people, when do you get your best ideas? And the answers that come are things like going for a walk, at the gym, in the shower, driving to work, when I'm just on my way off to sleep, or when I'm first waking up in the morning, okay? So those are what I call the zone of reflection. And then there's the zone of inspired action. And what I've found is that the zone of inspired action, which is almost always a highly productive zone, people often fall into that when they're already taking action, okay? So the move, what people think is, if they're stuck, if they're in the zone of resistance, they'll often say, if only I was feeling inspired, then I would be productive and focused and that sort of thing. But the move to inspired action is often through the zone of uninspired action, just doing some stuff. And this comes back to something we talked about earlier, is people often believe that they need to feel a certain way in order to take action. Oh, I need to feel motivated before I can take action. I need to feel inspired before I can take action. But you don't. You don't have to, your moods aren't even letting you know about the action you're thinking about taking. They're letting you know about the ebb and flow of the weather of your thinking. Your feelings and your the thoughts that are running through your thought system, that's just like weather, okay? And you don't want to make your results and your productivity dependent on the weather. Like that's, so the biggest move towards productivity that I can see is to make your productivity less weather dependent, less dependent on the weather of the ebb and flow of your moods, the ebb and flow of your thinking and feeling. And the key to doing that is seeing more and more clearly where your experience is coming from and who you really are. Because as you wake up to the truth of the fact that you're living in the experience of thought in the moment, and that who you really are is the one who's experiencing it, then you've got freedom to take action regardless of how you feel. See, a lot of productivity systems are around basically ways to kind of try and hack people into feeling motivated. But it's like, if you don't need to feel motivated to take action, you've got a big head start on everyone. You know, people, and by the way, I'm not particularly well organized or any of that stuff, and yet I'm quite productive. And I've been asked, you know, what's your secret? How do you manage to be so productive? And what it boils down to is, I'm not thinking very much about what I'm going to do before I do it. Like, if preparation is required, then I do it. But I'm not really thinking very much about, do I want to do that? Do I not want to do it? Do I feel like doing it today? Do I not feel like doing it? Oh, what if it doesn't work out? Blah, 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 blah. I'm just getting on with it. And that, I think, is kind of demonstrated in this map. Like, the more you're willing to take action regardless of how you feel, the more likely you are to find your way into the zone of inspired action. Does that make any sense?
It does. It does. For me, it does, at least.
No, it really does. And it changed a lot what people would expect, because a lot of people would expect, okay, give me the technique to make me feel finally motivated to do this, this, and this. They don't realize that they don't need to feel motivated to start to do something. And that's also explained why a lot of people, they were looking for secrets for productivity 10 years ago. And they're still looking for secret productivity now. And if searching for more techniques for productivity, is the answer, they would have found it at this point.
It's a really good point. And the other thing that I've seen happen a lot, and I think this is really important for people who want to create things in the world. Often I'll see someone get genuinely inspired and they'll be like, I want to write a book, or I want to start this business, or I want to create this podcast, or I want to work with these kind of people. And they get really inspired and they get a glimpse of something that they want to create. They get like a vision, if you like. They get that's what I want to do. And then they wake up the next morning, or they wake up the next week, and they feel different. Well, that's okay. The inspiration isn't there to provide fuel for the entire journey. The inspiration is there to give you something to aim at. It's to give you a sense of direction. But a lot of times people believe that they need to feel inspired and motivated every step of the way in order to do the thing that they want to do. But that's just confusion, you know. The inspiration is there to point you in a direction. And then the means of travel is just taking the next step. You just need to take the next step. And sometimes you won't feel inspired by the next step. Like, if I'm anything to go by, sometimes you'll feel really scared about the next step, or be worried, what if it doesn't work out, or whatever. It's like, okay, well, what's the next step? You just take the next step. You know, there's a quote by this is probably the most valuable productivity thing I've ever heard. It came from an author called E.L. Doctorow, who wrote many novels. And he said, writing a novel is like driving at night in fog with your headlights on. You can only see 20 feet ahead of you, but you can make the whole journey that way. And that to me, that is kind of the essence of, or it points to the essence of what I'm trying to express here, is that you don't need a productivity system to be productive. People have been productive for millions of years. You don't need to be feeling a certain way to be productive. You just need to take the next step, you know. And the wisdom and intelligence that's alive at the heart of our being, it's there to guide us as we take action and move forward. You know, I'll sometimes use the demonstration with people. I'll say, get up and walk across the room and back. And so they'll do that, no problem at all. I'm like, now, how long would that journey have taken you if you had to figure out every step in advance and get motivated for every step and then stay motivated every step of the way and think it through? It'd be a nightmare, right? But we're actually built for movement, built to be able to respond to reality. And a lot of times when people are kind of stuck and overthinking and that sort of thing, they're depriving themselves of their innate capacity for learning and responding to life. You know, there are things you can learn when you take action that you're never going to figure out in the privacy of your own head. Because when we take action, we get real world feedback. Things happen. We can work with that as human beings. We can learn from that and deal with that and make changes and adjustments and move forward. But we can't do that in the privacy of our own heads. And we think we can, and we can't. And so, you know, if I wanted to give a simple tip for productivity, do something. Do something. You know, it's funny in this, you know, we've been trying to make what we're doing today happen for a while because we've had scheduling stuff to deal with and all that sort of stuff. But we're doing something, and something will come from that. Like there are things that will come from doing something and taking action and creating something that couldn't come when we were just thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And that's actually very
back to reality, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because actually several clients that I work with, at a certain point, they realized that they just fell in an illusion. Somehow they thought that thinking a lot, it was movement.
Yeah.
So they actually thought that I'm doing stuff, I'm making steps. Like, but are you? I'm thinking about that a lot. But that's not what we're saying here. Now we're talking about actually doing something.
We even created the idea, remember, Andrea, motor illusion, motor.
Yes, we found a fancy name for this. We called that okay, it was in Italian, so difficult to translate in English, but it was like the idea motor illusion.
Idea motor illusion, like TM, you know?
Yes, so people would take it seriously, and they were like, oh, okay, so that's what's happening, tell me more. And then from there, they were actually realizing that, oh, wow, I thought that the problem was in my action, but the problem was like, I was not taking action. I was just thinking, but I was not realized that I was thinking. I thought I was doing something else. And then from there is space.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And it's so powerful because we've evolved to respond, to be able to deal with what happens. And when we're not taking action and moving forward, we're depriving ourselves of that really powerful source of information and learning and feedback. You know, a guy called John Grinder once said, feedback is the breakfast of champions. And it really, really is. It's when you're taking action and moving forward, you get real world feedback, and there's no substitute for it.
I agree. One of the questions that came up, nowadays there's a lot of talk about, I don't know if you ever read the Cal Newport books about digital minimalism. So some people think that the answer to this is to focus your online time on a few carefully selected activities that support the things you value. What do you think about that?
Well, it sounds, on the face of it, it sounds a common sense approach to life is, you know, put your attention and energy and time into things that matter to you, and don't put too much time and energy and attention into things that don't matter to you.
Sort of Marie Kondo.
Well, to me, it's like it looks like sort of common sense, like for anyone to get clear. You know, I think for all of us, we've we've been conditioned, each of us, in families, schools, cultures, workplace environments, and that sort of thing. And good thing too, you know, like there's nothing wrong with a bit of civilizing influence on us, okay? But as a result, a lot of times we've picked up other people's ideas about what we should want and what should matter to us and what should be important to us, rather than getting clearer and clearer on what really matters to you. You know, what do I want to, you know, experience in my life? What's important? What looks valuable to me? What looks worth doing? And my own experience is the clearer you are about who you are, what's important to you, what matters to you, what doesn't matter to you, what's valuable to you, what's not valuable to you, the clearer you can be about how you spend your time, what you prioritize, what you deprioritize. I'll give you an example. When I last had a job, which was a long time ago, it was like 1990, the late 1990s, and I had started making the move to working for myself, and so that journey for me involved contracting and then starting my own business and that sort of thing. And so while I was contracting, which was a step towards greater freedom and greater independence and doing many of the things I wanted to do, the company I was contracting to offered me a job, and it was a very attractive salary and package and position and all that sort of stuff. And I said, no, thanks. And they were like, but it's a great package. And I was like, yeah, but I'm good. I like what I'm doing. They said, but job security, you'll have job security. And I was kind of like, that doesn't look real to me. That doesn't look important to me. You know, what looks important to me is freedom and being true to myself. And that looked more valuable to me than money. Mm-hmm. And so but if I didn't know that, if I wasn't clear on that, then I probably would have taken the package and we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So I think, I mean, maybe I'm I'm not familiar with Newport's work. Like I know he wrote a book called Deep Work, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I haven't read it.
But also that is common sense. It's at the end is do a lot of deep work, and then it's you know the idea of the book can be summed up in a phrase. So you close yourself, you do like your 30 minutes, your 1 day or 1 week or 1 month of deep work, and then you create work that is better than most people that are distracted all day.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a vote for focusing your attention and energy and not being distracted, I'll vote for that. But it looks to me, it looks kind of common sense that if you put your time and attention and energy on the things that matter to you, that's going to create more optimal results than if you put your time and attention and energy on things that don't matter to you, that aren't important to you.
I think what makes the case, the elusive obvious that makes the case for this new paradigm you're speaking about and the principles behind clarity is that I think Michael Neal expressed it well in his TED Talk, saying, why aren't we awesomer? So yes, okay, everybody knows that it's common sense you should give attention to the stuff that matters to you in life. But if anyone in the modern world just takes a look around, you can see how few people are actually doing it.
Yeah.
Or how few people are truly productive, or they're enjoying their lives. And we have so much information out there that seems to give you the answer to it, but it's truly not making. If this information, we would have to be Superman by now. We would have to all be successful billionaires with the perfect waistline and the perfect job and enlightened like Buddhas. So I think that when you were speaking, I was really thinking about this. I was thinking about how this, just looking at this, it kind of trust us a bit outside of this scheme of searching for information continuously and searching for the common sense of someone else externally.
Well, here's the other thing that occurs to me in relation to that. You know, the other thing that this understanding gives to people or allows them to discover is an inner source of security and well-being that they may have not suspected that was there. And if a person doesn't know that they have within them a source, a reliable and persistent source of security and well-being and peace and love and aliveness, if we don't know that that's already there within us, then we innocently go looking outside ourselves for it. We go looking outside ourselves in achievement or status or money or power or fame or recognition or video games or you know, you can look at the whole topic of digital stress in a way is an example of people looking outside themselves for something that can be only found within. You know, there's a joke about a drunk guy late at night, and it's like 2 a.m, and he's scrabbling around in the dark in the grass underneath a street light. And a policeman comes up to him and says to him, you know, what are you doing? And the drunk guy looks up and goes, I'm looking for my keys. And the policeman goes, oh, I'll help you. Where did you lose them? And the guy goes, a couple of streets over. And the cop goes, well, why are you looking here? And the guy goes, because the light's better here. Well, we're all like that to some degree in the world of stuff, the world of things, of jobs, of money, of people, of apps, of games, of smartphones. The light's really good there. But what we're looking for, and what everyone's looking for, is relief from stress and worry and anxiety and frustration and fear and anger. Mm-hmm. They're looking for a sense of peace and well-being and love and connection and joy and aliveness and security and happiness. And it can only be found where it is, which is inside. That's the only place we can ever find it. That's the only place it ever comes from. But the light's not so good there. The light's great in the world of online media presence and Instagram and money and approval. The light's great out there, but what we're looking for isn't there. And if you're looking for something where it isn't, how long is it going to take to find it? You can only find it where it is, and it's inside.
And this really, really applies, and it can be tricky because, for example, people that I see really interested in topics like digital minimalism, they feel like they are part of a minority. So they feel like, oh, the majority is searching for something inside of social network and internet and their phone and everything, but we're going to find what you're looking for inside of digital minimalism, inside of a specific set of techniques and beliefs that in the end are going to make us be more productive and more effective. And it's the same trick. It's the same trick. The words are different, the definitions are different. We're not a majority, we're a minority. And there are actually some really good points there, like in, for example, the work of Col Newport. Like he's making a very good description of certain things that they should be obvious, but clearly we're not. Like, oh, if you are not focused and you never do like deep work, but you're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you're not gonna achieve much. It should be obvious, but a lot of people, up until they saw how he was describing that, they didn't thought about that. For them, it was, wow, that's actually very interesting. But then the little part that you explained that I would really, really love for a lot of people to realize is what we have going for us on the inside, what we have as an innate capacity of achieving results, of being focused. And that is not a problem if in a certain moment we don't feel that way. And since that is not a problem, we should not obsess about finding a technique.
Mhm.
Actually, I think that that's what's one of my most precious insights at the moment that I realized that a feeling is not a problem. I mean, in that was powerful. That I felt so light when I realized that. And I felt a bit old as well, because I thought I spent so many years just reacting on that.
But some people go their whole lives and never realize that. I think it's beautiful what you said, Andrea, that a feeling is not a problem. You know, we are built to be able to feel anything. We can feel the full range of human emotions. And it's funny, you know, if you look at a little child, like a toddler, like a 3-year-old, they'll go through the full range of human emotions in a single day. And yet their set point that they return to again and again is clarity and curiosity and engagement. We're actually far more resilient than we realize.
Now, Jamie, if you have enough energy, we have one last question.
Go for it.
So we're talking about feeling and also uncomfortable feelings. And one question that we have that a lot of people, they're wondering about this is when they have the experience of one feeling that is really bad, like when they have an experience of burnout, like when we experience burnout at work, a lot of people, they blame the digital lifestyle. Like I was too stressed, I have screen everywhere, I have notifications, too many things every day for a long time. I'm feeling the symptoms of burnout. And what is really happening there? Like what's happening when a person is experiencing a burnout? And so what to do when that happens?
Well, how it looks to me is that with any of these kind of the burnout as an example, it's a sign that someone has been like, the way it looks to me is that if we're kind of off track in our understanding of ourselves and what we're doing and that sort of thing, we get messages from our psychology, and those messages can show up as physical symptoms. They can show up as thoughts in the head, or whatever it might be. And if we ignore them, or if we just cope with them, like, you know, using a drink or a video game or whatever it might be, then the signals get louder. So to me, it's funny, you know, I was running a course a few years ago in Oslo. And one of the delegates came up to me during one of the breaks. And she said, you know, I've had chronic fatigue syndrome for the last 7 years. She said, would this help with that? I said, sure. I said, sure. She said, well, you know, I just want things to be back like they were before this happened, before I got chronic fatigue. Now, I've heard that from so many people. I just want things to be back like they were before I got chronic fatigue. I just want things to be back like they were before I got ME. I just want things to be back like they were before I got depression. Just want things to be back like they were before I got burnout. It's like the depression, the ME, the chronic fatigue, the burnout. That's the result of how things were before you got it. It's a result of ignoring the signals and symptoms that were trying to get your attention. In fact, it looks to me, and this may sound extreme, like burnout is wisdom's best shot at trying to slow you down and get you to take a step back from a path that could run you into the ground. And it may be the solution to it is going to be as simple as realizing who you are and where your experience comes from. Like that may be the first step. It's like, oh, I was feeling all this stress at work, but actually it was thought, oh, that's okay now. But here's the thing. I'm not saying if only you saw the truth of these principles, then you could do exactly the same job without any danger of burnout. Because here's the thing. You might see this more deeply for yourself, go back to the work that you were doing and suddenly realize, oh, this work no longer fits me. So this isn't a system of self-control and self-manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
If you look into this understanding and start waking up more deeply to who you really are and how your experience is created, I don't know what work is going to make sense for you in 6 months' time. What I do know is that we have an innate capacity for insight and realization, and that no one can be harmed or damaged psychologically. And so anyone who's experienced or experiencing burnout can fully recover from that through seeing more clearly who you are and how your experience works. But that doesn't mean things are going to be back like they were before you got that way. So is this making sense, guys?
Absolutely.
Completely.
Absolutely. I got a software update anyway. While you were saying that, I think I heard that already from Bill Petit or someone. But this time when you said it, I was like, now I get it.
Oh, what did you get that landed for you, Dario?
I have no idea, but I had the feeling of the software update. But it landed like, it's true. It's not, it is not what's happening now, but is what you were doing before. So if you want to go back to that, you didn't get the message.
Yeah. And that's not like, I've got nothing to say about what the form of someone's work or what their life is going to look like. It's just that if someone's got to the point of burnout, it's a sign that either in what they're doing or how they're understanding it, or both, things are off track in some way. And, but here's the thing I found. I've often found people saying, "Oh, I'm getting burnt out of my job. I can't take it anymore." And I say, "Well, let's explore this. Let's look at this understanding." And they get the understanding of that we're talking about, and all of a sudden, their whole work experience changes. So I had one of my clients. She was really struggling at work, not enjoying it, really not, feeling very inadequate and worrying that any time she was going to lose her job, and it weighed on her mind a lot and really struggled with it. She started getting glimpses into this understanding, into who she really is and where her experience is coming from. She went from really struggling at work to being their top performer, to getting salesperson of the year and employee of the year and all kinds of stuff, and being taken to all kinds of places, like just killing it, right? And she's doing that for a year. And then she's like, I want to spend more time with my children. And so she quit her job and became a stay-at-home mom. Then she ended up moving to live by the sea, so moving completely away from where she lived, and now runs a bed and breakfast by the sea. So who's to say? Like, I don't know how things are going to play out for someone once they wake up to what really matters to them and what's really important to them. Yeah, you'll see who you are and what you got going for you and how it works. And it may take you places you never expected to go.
Definitely. As when I got the software update, I got also a metaphor, which is lately in the last 3 years, I've been spending a lot of time at the computer since I was very young. And I got a bit of RSI in both my hands, actually. So repetitive strain injury. And at the beginning, I didn't accept it. So I wanted to use the keyboard and the mouse as much as I was using it before. And then I understood, no, if I continue to do this, it's just going to get worse. There's no physiotherapist or no stretching. Or of course, like, there are ways to cope with it and to take care of it better. But at the end, I had to take long periods in which I was using it as less as possible. This is also what led me to doing more coaching one-to-one with people and less article writing or creating funnels, or because I said, if I continue like this, my body's just sending me a message that this is enough. And now it's much better. I don't have those pains anymore, but I just needed 6 months of, I know people, I saw horror stories on YouTube of people that couldn't move their hands for 2 years. So, or at the beginning, it was the right one. So what they thought, I just work with the left, and they continue to work like hell. And then also the other one stopped working. And I'm like, hey, what the fuck, man? At the end, you're going to use the feet, you know, you're gonna get RSI on the feet or the elbows. So anyway,
yeah, it's, you know, there's an incredible wisdom in that shows up in our bodies and how our bodies respond as well. So I think it can be very, very valuable, as you know, for people to look to this understanding, and also just to see, you know, what message is this sending me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie.
It's such a pleasure to talk with you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And for those who want to, we're going to put the link anyway in the video and below the video. But I would suggest you to go to www.jaimesmart.com/instant-clarity, where you can download a couple of chapters from the Little Book of Clarity. And I think there is also free audio recording about instant clarity. So if you want to delve deeper into Jamie's work, and we absolutely recommend it, since it changed our lives. So we speak from the heart here. So
glad to hear it.
We absolutely recommend it. And also there are all your books available on Kindle and on Audible.
Yeah,
they're very pleasurable to hear.
The Audible are wonderful because you're actually reading them, and it makes all the difference.
Oh, good. Yeah, I had that written into my contract that I would be the one reading them.
That's nice. That's nice.
Well, thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Have a good evening.
You too.